AI doesn't have emotion. I will be very surprised, not at least not today. Maybe 10 years from now, AI will pick on some emotions of human beings. What the KPI was 20 years back when we were doing radio and audio and TV and video is not the metric today.
So, do you think speed is now the new proxy for success?
Speed comes with something. Consumer is in a deficit world of attention, not because of the lack of its ability to recognize, because of lack of relevance. Marketing used to have 72 attributes that we used to measure marketing under. Right now they are about 94. What's the role of marketing as we move forward from a measurement perspective? It should be directly correlated to sales.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Campaign Unscripted. Today I'm joined by Rohit Dadwal. He, in case anybody is unaware, which shouldn't be the case, is the CEO of MMA Global APAC. Rohit, thank you so much for taking the time to join Campaign.
Thank you for having me here. Pleasure.
Let's get into some of the things that many of the marketers are most curious about, and we'll start with dashboards. Marketers are drowning in dashboards, and that has come out in some of the surveys that MMA has done as well. But the strange thing is that despite having access to all of it, they are literally directionless. So while 71% say they struggle to act on measurement, what is MMA Global APAC doing to move from passive data collection to creative, actionable, creative intelligence? Because that is very important for how marketers reframe the way they plan, optimize, and measure effectiveness.
It's interesting the data point actually. When we were looking at these data points, we have done many surveys, a lot of research around attribution, around measurement. In fact, one of the four key pillars for MMA is called MAT, which is the multi-touch attribution. Few of the frameworks, methodologies around making sure, is there a scenario that we can enable the marketeers and the industry to rally behind on understanding what's the changing landscape of advertising and marketing. Now, the word dashboard is different for different people, but the fact still remains is there is a lot more data, and that data is represented on some sort of a dashboard. But is the data being effectively utilized? Are people being able to build intelligent insights to act on them? Is to be seen. The reason for that is a lot of that data doesn't necessarily flow from the outcomes that are being defined. Because you could have a first party data scenario, or you could have data on CRM. Does it really align to your objectives of the campaign? Should you be looking at that data before building a campaign? Should you be looking at it post facto the campaign? And does it tie back into the sales channel and the growth? That's one part of a campaign, for example. The other is, what are the brand metrics? What are the brand objectives? What are the KPIs that have been signed up? So does it actually marry all of that? What we are realizing is that a lot of this data is not intelligent, and they are, hopefully AI is going to do that for them, but they also need to tie it back to their objectives, their own KPIs, and look at it from a perspective of being able to deliver the value, which is really the growth. Can that be enabled to growth? What's the role of marketing as we move forward from a measurement perspective? It should be directly correlated to sales. I think with all the digital data that we have, you should be able to measure every dollar spent to sales.
And why is that not the case? Because if the North Star is ensuring that marketing ties into sales and having access to so many more tech tools today, why is it that, even that access has not enabled marketers to be able to lean in on the right ones and tie it to their KPIs?
Unfortunately, because different platforms, different services, different vendors that marketing is built on or is supported by have their own metrics. Um, Unfortunately, there are some marketers which don't measure these metrics that you are talking about. They still measure likes and thumbs ups and things which are not delivering value to the sales of the business. It's not correlated to the direct sales. And if you are only going to measure the likes and engagements and pre rolls and post rolls, how does that tie into the sales number? Is that being done? In a lot of organizations, the challenge is not just that how do you connect it to your sales data? If you don't have that mechanics, if you don't have the supply chain to support that data, if that data does not roll into marketing, if that data doesn't roll into the CFO, then how do you correlate? A marketing dollar being questioned by the CFO should also be tied by the sales data that comes in. Does that happen in many organizations? I don't think so.
Now, everyone is looking at AI to be the superhero that will suddenly galvanize everything that they're doing. But it feels as if its real superpower will be when it can do predictive campaigns, which has probably not come to reality yet. At the same time, do you think that AI can really help in doing a lot more intelligence when it comes to post-mortem of campaigns?
We basically have 4 programs. We also have an AI think tank, which is governed by about 270 marketing organizations around the world, where we have 3 objectives. One is creative, one is media, one is responsible AI. And within that, on the creative part, which I was talking about earlier, we've done CAPS, which is personalization at scale. And I'm citing this example particularly to your point is how can AI play a role? AI can play a role at various levels. You need to choose which particular part of your campaign, which particular part of your media, which particular part of your strategy you want the AI to play a role. It can play a role across the channel. It can play a role across the campaign from strategy to execution to creative using generative AI, etc., predictive using models, media mix, etc., etc. You need to be clear about what percentage you want that to play a role on. What we did was we have a new methodology called CAPS. It's Personalization at Scale, Consortium for Personalization, where we've said that look at only the creative aspect and the media. Is there a way that AI can help target the audience and render creatives based on the audience preferences, which only AI is able to do in a real time scenario? It can be compared to many other past models of programmatic, DCO, etc. But the scale with those technologies was not there. We've done about 25 case studies based on this new methodology. Is in QSR, financial, beverages, healthcare. In every case study, we've seen on an average between 50 to 175% return of investment, enhanced return of investment on the same marketing dollar. There are case studies where where companies have done creatives, 72 or 512 creatives, customized to the audience signals, 1200 odd signals. And in all of them, whether it's on video, whether it's on audio, whether it's a static image, we've seen the range of 75 to 125% return on investment. Now, AI has helped you do prediction, it has helped you do creative, rendering of that creative, not creative generation. So, we currently do not say that generative AI should be able to build your creative for your brand because there is IP, trademark, etc., etc. But now that your agency or your brand has approved creatives, AI can predict which creative to be sent to who, which audience, which signal, etc. And it's doable, and it has been executed with about 20 case studies around the world. We've, and we are exploring a couple of them in India also right now, which we will implement. Now, to answer your question, predictive, yes. bits and pieces of that, complete campaign prediction to say, I build a campaign, I'll give it to AI, AI will should be able to tell me whether this will be successful or not. I don't think so anybody's done that, not to my knowledge. I don't think so that's also something which will not be possible. AI doesn't have emotion. I will be very surprised, not at least not today. Maybe 10 years from now, AI will pick on some emotions of human beings, but because of the empathy, the emotion, the lack of it for AI, I don't think so this is going to ever be a successful scenario.
Now, you mentioned about the fact that AI can help a lot of marketers when it comes to doing a post campaign analysis so that they can create better campaigns for the next one, right?
Sure.
Um, but how is it that they can actually do that? Because a lot of time, the reaction to a campaign can be very topical, but it might not be necessarily able to capture in the contextuality of that campaign. So, how can marketers actually intelligently use these tools to ensure that what you just mentioned about KPIs and business outcomes are tied in smartly?
I think it will happen. AI is a technology which learns on what it tells, what you tell it. It builds on that learning, it continues to enhance its learning, and then be able to predict and answer your queries and give you options based on what it's learning. That's what the LLMs are. It learns, based on that it deciphers, builds probabilities, builds theories. You give it more data, it builds more. So in the example that you were saying, it will be able to do it. The challenge though there is that when you're looking at building certain campaigns, the example that you're asking is post facto campaigns. It can do a very good analysis of what the data was or what the creative was, why did it work, etc., etc. To be able to replicate again to the human, to will it work in a machine environment? I'm sure it will, if the AI says so. But when you pull it out of a machine and give it to the consumers, which is the going back to my earlier point of emotion, emotive, etc., ethical, that's where the gap is.
If LLMs can do better assessment, can do better scoring, and which can help marketers reshape or rethink their planning, budgeting, and even take on the fly decisions, right? What happens to the traditional KPIs that most of them are used to?
Uh, the third think tank that we are working on is the most organization structure think tank. Marketing used to have 72 attributes that we used to measure marketing under. Right now, they are about 94. And with AI, Martech, etc., there's going to be hopefully about 120 attributes. So the whole marketing function is also changing. What the KPI was 20 years back when we were doing radio and audio and TV and video is not the metric today. So the KPI is decided by technology. I think the organizations have to adapt first before the KPIs can be changed. You can change the KPI, but without having the capability to measure that KPI, what's the point of building a new KPI?
100 plus functions in marketing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a huge jump. And
it's
if one were to look at that and also look at the fact that now you have so many new nomenclatures that have entered in the entire corporate hierarchy, that also means, do you think we are heading towards an era where creative intuition, which was the linchpin
Mhm.
of advertising and marketing, is now being benchmarked more as media performance?
Eh, in certain segments, yes. In certain companies, maybe yes. Fundamentally, it can never be the leader. Advertising and marketing has to be built on storytelling. There has to be emotions. You have to have a connect with the consumer. You can do tactical campaigns which were done in the past also. But if you want to build your brand, you cannot build it on performance only.
You're absolutely right, especially in contemporary times when we are living in a attention deficit economy, right? Almost all campaigns are just a scroll away. And that MMA has its first second strategy, which underlines the whole urgency of attention
Attention,
in advertising.
attention.
So, do you think speed is now the new proxy for success? That how can relevance and resonance still win in a world where everything is optimized
I think
for
attention
skills?
is if the whole objective of getting the consumer to pay attention to you, to understand what you're saying, to buy your product, uh, that to me is the metric. This metric, we've been at MMA, we've been talking about this metric for 7 years. I think we were way ahead of our time when we started talking about attention being the metric. First, second strategy, reach is not a metric that you should measure. If you advertise to everybody and nobody sees this and nobody pays attention, what's the point of you advertising? So attention is the new metric, and we established it. And along with that, there were a couple of other things in that framework and methodology that we've established. Is that first second strategy basically says you have to be resonate. Your ad should resonate with the consumer within the first second. We have scientifically proven that it takes only 0.58 second for the consumer to recognize your ad while they are scrolling on a mobile friendly device. That's all it takes for them to recognize your ad. Speed is important from a consumption perspective also, but it's also important from a marketer's perspective, because there are a lot of campaigns where you don't see the logo in the first 2 seconds. So if the consumer is paying attention only for 0.58 second, why is your logo not there on the screen in the first second? What are you losing out on? It also goes on to talk a lot about creatives, what kind of colors. Motion based imagery has a certain recall. Where does a consumer draw its eyes on? So we've done this based on eye tracking, based on neuroscience, etc., and we've been able to establish. But speed comes with something. Consumer is in a deficit world of attention, not because of the lack of its ability to recognize, because of lack of relevance. If it's not relevant, I'm moving on. If it is relevant, I'm paying attention. But speed is just a factor on that. It's not the decider, because if I am paying attention and if I like it, there are ads which are 3 minutes long, and people sit through all of those 3 minutes. Then where does the terminology of deficient time deficient attention come? It doesn't. People go online to look for ads which are 3 minutes because they want to see it. So I don't think so it's a function of relevance or resonance between that. It's a mix of what is important, how are you looking at the consumer behavior, what is scientifically, and we've proven it scientifically, 0.58 second. Given all those parameters, how are you enabling yourself to be best placed in that scenario? You can stop the customer if they're paying attention, and that will not be 0.58 second.
So it looks like we are in this journey of not just speed, you're right about it, resonance, relevance, backed by technology. And you mentioned about the fact that the whole landscape of marketing is in a tumult of sorts, positive, negative.
It's all for the positive. We are very excited. I think the whole holy grail of advertising was a personalized message to a person. That's holy grail. All this data supports that. AI will enhance that. Technology is the means to the end. I think the marketing organization has to understand that if they can utilize this and actually have that one-to-one conversation with Rohit, with somebody, and give them the most relevant ad and the right message, that's what we've always been yearning for.
Here we all are in for exciting times, but thank you so much, Rohit,
Thank you.
for taking the time and really telling us so much more about what are the changes that we can look forward to and some of the things that marketers need to keep in mind and not just blindly follow some of the tech trends that keep coming up all over the place.
Yeah, getting away from the shiny new objective is a good idea.
That's absolutely true. Thank you once again
Thank
for
you.
speaking
Thank
to
you for
Campaign
having
India.
me.
Thank you.